read you a couple of readings, and then we'll dive in. From the Jesus story, Luke 23, 8 through 9. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had been wanting to see him for a long time, because he had heard about him and was hoping to see him perform some sign. He questioned him at some length, but Jesus gave him no answer. And from A Course in Miracles, chapter 21, the still small voice for God is not drowned out by all the ego's raucous screams and senseless ravings to those who want to hear it. Perception is a choice and not a fact. But on this choice depends far more than you may realize as yet. For on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely on your whole belief in what you are. Listen to what the ego says and see what it directs you to see, and it is sure that you will see yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. There is another vision and another voice. There's a vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting but your choice. And if you place your faith in them, you will perceive another self in you. This other self sees miracles as natural. Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it doesn't understand how separate minds can influence each other, nor could they do so. But minds cannot be separate. This other self is perfectly aware of this, and thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. They always change your mind. There is no other mind. Breathe deeply. Now, if you are on Facebook too much, like me, perhaps you've noticed that sometimes odd things sort of turn up in your news feed. You will see a post from someone you don't know and probably would never add as a friend after you read the post. And the reason that you are seeing this offensive post is because one of your friends decided they had to correct somebody who was wrong on the internet. Now, I say this without judgment because in the not too distant future, I was that person who had to correct everyone who was wrong on the internet, so I can empathize. However, I am not the person who has to correct all the wrongs around me right now. I have trained myself at least 99% of the time to just keep scrolling. Just keep scrolling. Don't stop. Apparently, though, this is some algorithmic change that Facebook has made, ostensibly to create more engagement among its members. However, what it seems to be truly accomplishing is simply turning up the volume on the already cacophonous outrage levels that have permeated this and most likely all social platforms. What this algorithm is trying to do is draw you back into the arguments that you may have decided you no longer want to be part of. It's like putting a piece of King's Hawaiian bread in front of someone on keto. I speak from experience. It takes a lot of strength. And I have so often failed that temptation. So I've been handling this algorithm in two stages. First, I look to see which one of my knucklehead friends is still arguing with a brick wall. And two, I click on the three little buttons in the right-hand corner of that post, and I tell Facebook to never, ever, ever show me that kind of content ever again. It's like playing whack-a-mole, though, because it's a game of like training the algorithm to tell it that these are not fertile fishing waters for its insidious game of luring people into pointless political arguments on social media. Do not think that this move by Facebook is random. They know what they're doing. The Wall Street Journal a few years ago did a 3-part series on the tactics that Facebook in particular has used over the years to get us all addicted to its platform and to engage in endless hours of doom scrolling and useless bickering with strangers who now could actually just be bots. They're not even real people. They're just programmed to argue with you. Back in 2018, a new algorithm was introduced that corporate leaders hoped would make Facebook a kinder and gentler place. Imagine. The newspaper's investigation of Facebook's internal communication, however, found out it did, of course, just the opposite. It made the platform noisier and full of even more outrage and misinformation, probably to the surprise of no one who is not a corporate Facebook leader. I mean, really. In a metaphysical sense, Facebook is simply a metaphor for our ego-driven world. The ego knows it has no power over you unless it can deeply engage you in feelings of anger, in feelings of shame or fear or continuous grievances. If it sees you slipping from its grip, say you're getting more into meditation, or you're taking more walks in nature, or you're connecting deeply with your friends or your spiritual practices, it will rejigger its algorithms and seek new ways to pull you back into its darkness of cacophonous chaos. That's a good band name. Cacophonous chaos. Hello, Cleveland. But listen to what the ego says, A Course in Miracles says in chapter 21. Listen to what it says and see what it directs you to see. And it is sure that you will see yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. And it's all by design. But you know, this is good news, because as A Course says, there's two selves wandering around in this flesh suit. There's that tiny, vulnerable, fearful ego, and then there's that higher divine self that's constantly listening to that voice for God. And we have a choice. We have a choice about which self we pay attention to. If we pay attention to the one that is attuned to the voice for God, the Holy Spirit that speaks in that still small voice and will not be drowned out by the ego's raucous screams and senseless ravings, A Course says. If we listen to that voice, we will hear, because we want to hear the higher voice. But here's the key, though, according to A Course. For on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely on your whole belief in what you are. Now, I would submit to you that this morning, the reason our world seems especially noisy these days is that we, collectively, have forgotten who we are. We are the light of the world. We are children of the eternal universe. When we forget that there are two selves within us, it's easy to pay attention to the noisy part that grabs your attention with its raucous screams and senseless ravings. However, I think the increased volume of outrage and grievance in our time is also occurring because more and more of us are seeking to tune it out. Lots of people aren't watching the news anymore. Most young people are getting their news from TikTok. I have an account, but I never log on to TikTok. What is the news like on TikTok? I don't even know. What are they seeing? I don't know. But we want to turn, I think this is what is happening, is people want to turn inward. They want to learn to be still. I think on a conscious level, we're tired of all of the noise, of all of the outrage. We're tired. Some of us don't know what to do, but I think we want to go inward and learn how to be still. The ego, though, like Facebook, it is madly trying any and all algorithms it can think of to keep our attention on the world outside of ourselves. So many of us on Facebook, me included, curate who our friends are. We create a bubble, right? We want those like-minded spirits where we can go and feel uplifted by the people on Facebook. But in A Course's terms, we're trying to create the happy dream. We're trying to create it right there on our screen. But that doesn't serve the ego's purpose, so it jacks up the volume. So we got a choice. We can keep doom scrolling through our old patterns and issues and grievances and fears, or we can see through this cacophonous chaos to the holy stillness. That silence that beckons us to listen to it every single moment of the day. This silence, if you're familiar with the Muslim mystic poet Rumi, he talks about this field out beyond right doing and wrongdoing. That's the silence That's where the holy lives. It is the silence where our sense of separation falls apart and we understand there's only one of us here. We're all disparate bodies having disparate experiences, but we are that all one universal spirit. All just here to learn how to love and forgive. And we can see through this darkness into that silence by doing one thing on a regular basis. Shut up. You don't have to respond to everything that is going on. Learn to be still. Instead of participating in this cacophony of chaos, adding our voices to the outrage, what if it's time? What if it's time to learn to be still? What if this is the moment where we practice silence? Maybe this time is not about having our voice heard, but having God's voice heard. First deeply within ourselves, and then out in the world. Once we have heard that voice for God, the words that we do choose to speak, they have power. They have efficacy. They are helpful. They are holy. What if it's time to train the algorithm of our ego that we are not taking the bait of its fear and outrage anymore? It's so tempting. It's tempting to play the ego's game because it's easy, you know. But we escape the ego's clutches when we follow Jesus' example. In the Jesus story in Luke 23, we find our guy before Herod being tried for sedition because people have become outraged by his brand of activism. And that's what our ego does. It creates so much outrage in the world that anyone who dares not to join in the fearful fun is going to be put on trial in some way or another, jeered at, dismissed as somebody who, you don't care enough, you're not angry, you don't care enough. Well, the scripture tells us that Herod was happy to see Jesus. He hoped that Jesus would perform some sort of miracle or something, a sign in the assembly. Maybe Herod was hoping that Jesus would get mad, bring down the wrath of God on his accusers. That's what our ego would do. And it puts us on trial for not taking its bait of fear and outrage. It says we'll lose our connection to spirit. But that just puts us right back in the algorithm. But Jesus doesn't do any of that. The scripture says he remained silent. He answered cacophonous chaos with stillness. And that's so hard for us. We want to defend ourselves. We want to make a case about why we're right and everybody else is wrong. But Jesus understood that no matter what he said, no matter what he did, he would be playing the ego's game. So Jesus teaches us to remain still. Don't engage with the ego's algorithm. No matter what Jesus did in this moment, his fate was sealed. Ours is too. The ego will always seek to crucify you, to keep you trapped in a game of fear that wants to kill your spirit. And there's no talking your way out of that. Life in the Spirit, though, is kind of like Facebook, too. I mean, Jesus curated his own community, right? Perhaps they weren't the 12 best guys in the end, but they carried his message even so far as to into this modern day. We know all about Jesus because of those 12 guys. Jesus also just kept scrolling in many cases by refusing to engage with the algorithms that sought to draw him into conflict with others. The big difference between Jesus and us, though, is that he didn't exclude those who disagreed with him or those who resisted him. Instead, he sought to see through their cacophonous chaos to the light within them. And he invites us to do the same, to curate a community of love around us. Here we are. but not to exclude those who may oppose us. Instead, like Jesus, the Holy invites us to see so deeply into another person's darkness that eventually all we can perceive about them is light. Yes, you have to mitigate the damage that other people may be doing in the world. You have to work. But as the Course tells us, we also must have only appreciation for our holy siblings, even those who are so engaged with the ego's game that they don't truly understand or may seem not to care about the harm that they cause others and themselves. As Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, the secret of creating peace is that when you listen to another person, you only have one purpose: to offer them an opportunity to empty their heart. And it's easy to hold space for people that we love, to allow them a safe space to empty their heart. But how often, though, how often can we be open enough to allow even those we may perceive as enemies to feel safe to empty their heart to us? And that's our challenge, to be so attuned to the voice for God that we can become a place of comfort and safety for even those our egos would condemn and judge as separate from ourselves. If we want to create peace, though, we have to learn to be still, even in the face of outrage. And then we become a place where miracles naturally occur because we have remembered who we are. We are the light of the world. We are that one Spirit. There's only one of us here. All of our readings today agree that the key to seeing through this cacophonous chaos, we should make that a drinking game, where every time I say that. Cheers! So that the key to seeing through that is to approach each moment with awareness and perception of who and what we truly are. Thich Nhat Hanh says, if you are able to keep that awareness and compassion alive in you, then you can sit for an hour and listen even if the other person's speech contains a lot of wrong perceptions, condemnations, and bitterness. You can continue to listen because you're already protected by the nectar of compassion in your own heart. That's the awareness that Jesus practiced as he stood before Herod. That's the awareness a Course encourages us to have as we listen for the still small voice of God instead of that raucous voice for the ego. A Course reminds us that perception is a choice, not a fact. The ego world does not have to dictate how we perceive it, it says. We have the vision of God, which means we can see in the dark. We have the ability to see light everywhere, even in the darkest soul that we may perceive on earth. We can't use that perception if we're too busy babbling on and adding to the cacophonous chaos of the world. Bottoms up. So first, shut up. Learn to be still. We have to stop thinking that adding our ego's voice to all this chaos will do anything to change the world. It's instructive to note that when Jesus finally does speak after his trial, he speaks words of forgiveness. He forgives the thieves on either side of him. He forgives those who tortured him and hung him on the cross. And that's the goal of stillness. Holy forgiveness. And that is literally what will save the whole world. We don't get there by talking, although I'm up here talking a lot. We get there by loving. We get there by forgiving. We get there by refusing to engage in the ego's game of fear and grievance and outrage. We get there by being still and aware of which self we are listening to. Are we listening to our fear, our anger, our outrage? Or are we listening to that higher divine self, that voice for love and compassion and peace? Thich Nhat Hanh says, keeping your awareness keeps you safe. A Course says it does more than that. Awareness ends the separation because it makes us realize there's only one of us here, and our minds are never truly separate, although bodies are. Our higher divine self knows this. And so when a miracle changes our perception and we see the light that shines even through the darkness of this cacophonous chaos, then the collective mind that we all share is changed because all minds are joined. That poet Rumi, he writes, there is a moon inside every human being. Learn to be companions with it. Give more of your life to this listening. As brightness is to time, so you are to the one who talks to the deep ear in your chest. I should sell my tongue and buy 1,000 ears when that one steps near and begins to speak. I invite you, my friends, sell your tongue. Buy 1,000 ears. Stop talking so much. Listen deeply. Listen deeply to the silence that is always here in this present moment, because it has so much peace, so much wisdom, so much love and joy to share if we can only learn to be still and give our lives to that kind of deep listening. If we were to seek the moon inside everyone, that illuminous glow, that reflected light of love that created us all, then we could just choose to scroll through that holy newsfeed of love that reaffirms the truth of all of us, that we're the light of the world, innocent children of God. And when that's our perception, when that is our choice of what to perceive in the world, then that one mind that we all are will smile and say, oh yeah.